Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hey, hello and welcome to the AHA channel, the channel that makes you go AHA, and my name is Asli. Today I want to talk about passive voice, which I think is tricky, and I'm not only talking about its written structure but also whether it is proper or not to use passive voice. And I guess this is a non-native English speaker's problem. So firstly, I want to talk about why people use passive voice, and the second is about its sentence structure, and the last one is about when it is proper to use passive voice in English. Okay, first let's talk about why people use passive voice. Imagine that you're at a party and someone is asking you this question. Excuse me, do I know you? And you don't want to sound like a stranger who came into a party randomly like that, and you want to sound important to the host of the party, so you want to focus on the word I more than anything. So you might say, I was invited by Mrs. Salma herself. And this is the second example. Let's say that you're talking about a girl to a friend of yours, and you know that this girl has been through hard times with her lovers, and well, her boyfriends, most of her boyfriends have abused her, and at last you hope for the best for her. So you say, I hope she will be truly loved one day. Here, you don't know and you don't even care about who is going to do that, who is going to love her truly. You just want somebody someday will truly love her. Okay, second is about the pattern. But before getting into the discussion of the pattern for passive voice, I think it is a lot easier for us to understand passive voice if we understand about active voice. And here is the example of active voice. My father bought me a new car. My father is a subject here. And the father here, the word father here is doing an action, and the action is buying a new car. So the father, the word father here is active, and that is why it is called active voice, because the subject is doing something, is active. Passive voice is pretty much the opposite of it. So the subject in passive voice is not doing anything. It is passive. Someone else, something, or other people, or some things do the action here. The subject here is affected by the action that's done. I was invited by Mrs. Salma. The subject here is I, and the word I is not doing any action in the sentence. The one who is doing the action is Mrs. Salma, and the activity is inviting. And Mrs. Salma invited the subject I in the sentence. There are three patterns of passive voice that we need to learn here. The first is subject plus to be plus verb 3. And this is the example of the sentence. I was born in 1989, let's say. So I is the subject here, and was is the to be, and born is the verb 3 or the past participle. Second pattern, you have subject and you have a modal be plus verb 3. So for example, the car will be towed. The subject here is the car, and will be is the modal and the be, and towed is the verb 3 or the past participle. And the third pattern is you have subject, you have has and had, been plus verb 3. So for example, the door had been closed. The subject here is the door, and we have had been, and we also have closed, which is the verb 3 or the past participle. The last one is about when we can use passive voice. Now, if English is your second language or even foreign language to you, then I guess this can be a problem. Using passive voice can be a problem. Well, sometimes we say things in passive voice in our mother tongue or our first language, and it's natural. And we expect that it is also natural to say that in passive voice in English. But sometimes it's not. So for example, you are talking to someone, but he speaks too fast that you don't understand any word he says. So you want him to speak slowly. You say this in Indonesian and it's natural and it's passive voice. Tolong bicara pelan-pelan agar mudah dipahami. But we can't say this in English. Please speak carefully in order to be understood. That's so not natural. Instead, you might want to say, please speak carefully so that I can understand you. Okay, this is the second example. So let's say that you've done cooking for your lunch and it is now time to do the serving. And in Indonesian, and it is natural, we say, makanan sudah siap disajikan, and that's passive voice. But in English, we can't say, the food is ready to be served. Instead, you might want to say, the food is ready to serve. Okay, here's when you can use passive voice in English. The first is when you want to talk about when or where you were born. You can say, I was born in 1980. You don't say, my mother bore me in 1980. Instead, you want to use passive voice here. Secondly, you can use passive voice if you don't know the doer of the action in the sentence. So for example, you can say, the house was built in 2001 because you just know it was built in that year, but you don't know who built it, so you can say that. Thirdly, you can use passive voice if you don't want to sound like you're blaming someone. For example, oh, the dinner hasn't been prepared yet. Here, the one who always cooks for dinner is your mother, and you really don't want to blame your mother for not having finished the cooking for dinner yet. So you say, the dinner hasn't been prepared yet. Last, you can use passive voice to talk about general truths. So you can say, rules are made to be broken, and that's something general. Okay, thank you for watching my video. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.